There is a place that is spoken about only in whispers, a dark area that spawns the beginnings of urban legends, a place where anything can happen and usually does. During the light of day, it hides just outside of view, but when the sun goes down, spirits, creatures of the night, roam free, and things do go bump in the night. It is in every state and every country, and there is no escaping it, no matter how safe you feel behind your locked doors and latched windows. So we invite you to turn down the lights and turn up your radio while we join Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, your hosts, on a journey into the darkness on the edge of town.
Hello and welcome. You're tuned into the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness. I'm your host, Dave Schrader, along with me, Mr. Tim Dennis at the Supernatural News Desk. It's a Supernatural News Saturday, and we've got some ParaShare coming up in the second part of this evening's show. I hope you guys are here and enjoy this. For any of you interested, I am out in Des Moines, Iowa, all weekend at the Wizard World convention that's taking place. And I'll be doing talks on the paranormal. I'll also be hosting some panels. Today, as a matter of fact, I've got two of the members from the Supernatural cast that I'll be with. Tomorrow, Tim, Matt Ryan, Constantine, and I get to sit down and have a talk with the audience.
Ooh.
So we're going to do that. We're also exploring curses in Hollywood, ghosts of Iowa. It's cool stuff. So you can find information. And because I love our listeners, Tim, I don't know if you're aware of this, I like to give them things and help them with things. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be at 3 Wizard World conventions this year. Boise, Idaho in July, Des Moines, Iowa this weekend, and later on in the year at Madison, Wisconsin. And I think I'm dragging your squirrely ass with me to that one. But anyway, we're going to be at these conventions. I've got a discount code for anybody, no matter if it's one of the events I'm going to be at or at any of the other Wizard World conventions that are taking place this year. If you go to buy them online, use code DARKNESS20 to save 20% off the cost of your entire order. So do that. Take advantage of it. WizardWorld.com. For those of you that are not familiar, no, it's not a Harry Potter convention. It's a huge comic book, sci-fi nerd fest. The biggest in the land. They're great, a lot of fun to attend, and you get a chance. They're mixing in paranormal stuff now, so you can come on out and be a part of this. I might be adding a few more shows throughout the year, but go subscribe right now to get your ticket. Well, you don't have to subscribe, but if you go to wizardworld.com and get your tickets there, use the code DARKNESS20 to save. That's what I like to do, Tim. I like to save people money.
That's a good thing.
Well, I'm a giver. What can I say? I'm a giver. Let's get started. Saturday's here. The time is right for dancing in the streets. Tomorrow we're going to take a look at Haunted Tombstone, which I'm really excited about, Tim. You and I get to visit for the first time ever Tombstone, Arizona at the end of this month.
Yeah.
And we get to hear the history. We get to put ourselves into the mix. We're going to talk with a couple of the celebrities that starred in the original Tombstone movie. It's going to be a great time. I'm really looking forward to this. But tomorrow we're going to actually hear the history of Tombstone, what took place there, and we're going to get a good mix of the hauntings that have taken place there over the years as well. So you'll get some of that information, plus a brand new Theater of the Mind. And here's the thing about tomorrow's Theater of the Mind, Tim. Mm-hmm. You know, my wife and I are consolidating. We moved 2 households into one house.
Okay.
And as you've seen when you've been here, I have boxes everywhere.
Oh, sure.
Because I have so much stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been putting some of my stuff out on eBay, some of my weird and goofy and fun stuff. But I've got a lot of people begging me for the haunted dolls that I have collected in my garage, wrapped in holy bubble wrap.
I don't know why, but yeah.
Yeah. So as I was thinking about that and unboxing them, I had a very weird experience with one of the dolls recently, Tim.
Okay.
And, I don't know how to even put this. We're going to include the story in tomorrow's episode. This wasn't my doll, but I am now the curator of this doll. But I want this doll out of my house and away now. I don't get unnerved usually and I think the haunted dolls are pretty funny. But I'm going to drop this probably on our Facebook page next week, and I'll just drop it out for people. And if they're interested, they can bid on it, and I'll do it maybe one day during the week, Tuesday or Wednesday. And they can bid on it, and whoever the high winner is after 24 hours, I'll send it out to them. But it's a weird doll, and it's got a weird history. And I would honestly say this is the first one of the haunted dolls I've gotten that I fully feel I may be having some paranormal issues with.
Really?
So, yeah. I'll keep it for the episode tomorrow. I want you to hear how it goes. But I'll share the original story that was given to me from the owner, and then I'll wrap it up with what just occurred to me very recently with this creepy-ass doll. So you get to hear that story, and then next week, follow me on Facebook, and you may be able to buy that creepy-ass doll for yourself. I'm on a fence post about this, Tim. Do I sell haunted dolls and clear out my house so that my kids aren't around them? I mean, I don't feel threatened by any of them, really. Yeah. This one a little bit more than any of the others. But, I mean, are people going to be disappointed if they get them home and, 666 isn't scratched into their wall the first day, or they don't hear the sound of footsteps and giggling in the hallways? I just don't know what the expectations would be. I've had people that have done EVP with some of these dolls and have come back telling me they've gotten really weird EVP. Mm-hmm. We've had, I've had a few things go on that I'm not real sure what, if I can attribute it to the dolls or not. But the stories that come with them are interesting. So if you're interested in somebody's personal story and their dolls, I guess I'll start getting them out of my house and clearing them out of my garage.
I look at it this way. It's quote unquote for entertainment purposes only, right? So
yeah,
you get what you pay for. If you put out the money and you do get results with it, and you do get something that essentially is a Satan's stepchild, then yeah, you got what you were expecting. If you get little to no results from it, then you know what, you took your chances, you paid your ride. It's like gambling, and if you lost, you lost. At least you put the money out there and you had a little fun.
Right. Well, and then you've got it to keep, and I'll send you the write-up on each one of these dolls, but I think with this one I'll send you the write-up and send you the audio file so that you've got it for yourself to download of the story of this doll. Dude, I don't understand it. I don't know what's gone on with it, and I talked to a few other doll collectors that have nothing to do with haunted dolls, and they can't explain what's gone on with this thing. So, yeah. Fun stuff. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Haunted tombstone and having a good time. Let's get started. We've got a lot of supernatural news to catch up on this week, Tim.
Sure.
Where are we going to begin today?
Well, we're going to begin with a terrified mother who has photographed a ghost lurking behind her son on a shocking picture. Speaking of kids and being terrified by things that you can't see, a mother of two was left terrified and unable to sleep after she noticed a ghostly figure in a photograph she took of her family playing in the woods. This is one of those ones that isn't involving a doll and one that she can't control. Laura Watson claims the ghostly child can be seen just behind her son's shoulder in the harrowing photograph. Laura from Newcastle had been out with her family at Plessy Woods Park last weekend when she decided to take some pictures on her phone of her daughter, her daughter Charlotte Hill, who is 15, her son Byron Watson, who is 9, and cousin Jack, who is 16. She said, "It's very unusual, and everyone is really freaked out. Me and my daughter couldn't even go to sleep last night because we were so scared." Laura's a medical receptionist and was left terrified when she saw later the pictures that she had taken. She claims the picture shows the face of another child and had appeared behind Byron, despite no one else being near them in the woods at the time. "My husband is on night shifts, and I was alone, and I was like, oh, God, I was terrified in case anything had followed us back," she said. "I've had people on our Facebook saying they're going to send me prayers." Laura was skeptical of anything to do with ghosts and the paranormal, but admits that the photograph has changed her mind. "I didn't believe in anything like that until I saw this for myself," she said. The family had been walking their dogs after enjoying a picnic in the park when the children came across a large tree and began climbing it. Laura decided to take a picture of them using her phone, but it wouldn't be until later that day that she would discover the ghostly figure. She said there was no one behind the tree. My daughter or my nephew would have seen them. There was nobody there. After getting home and putting the picture on her computer, it was only then she made the frightening discovery. No one was any the wiser that anything was actually there until I saw the picture, Laura said. When I got home, I put the picture on the computer, and when it zoomed in, I was able to see it closer. I thought, what is that thing behind Byron? When I zoomed in further, I could see a face, but I was like, but there was nobody there. It looks like a child to me. I don't know if it's a girl or a boy, but I can see this face, and it looks like the hand is on my son's shoulder, which is very bizarre. Ooh, that's even creepier. Some people have said I must have photoshopped it, as they can't believe it, but I've explained that I wouldn't even have a clue how to do anything like that. It was literally taken on a phone. I'm rubbish with technology, and I'm just not that kind of person to do that. There's no way that is anything but what it is. You basically can see a face. For someone to be that close to my son, if it was another child, he would have noticed them. I would have seen them, and I wouldn't have taken a picture with another kid behind them. Some have suggested that the ghostly figure may be the spirit of a boy who drowned in the woods years ago. Laura said, I don't know much about the history of the woods, but some people are saying that many moons ago, a young boy drowned in the river. You don't know if it's just hearsay. A lot of people say it looks like a girl with pigtails, but it doesn't to me. It looks like a boy. That's what it looks like to me, Laura went on to say. I would love to go back to the woods. It's not put me off at all, but I think it's dead fascinating now. That's a hell of a pun, actually. Obviously, I just hoped it's not hanging around us. I don't want that feeling that something is with us.
Now, I've seen the picture, and you can see the picture.
Yep.
I mean, it really does look like there's a face peeking between those branches, behind the person's shoulder, behind the one kid's shoulder.
Yeah,
to me it does.
Yeah.
I've had people tell me, oh, well, that's obviously a branch, and this is just no, it definitely looks like a face to me.
Yeah, it looks like an eye and an ear.
I'm always interested when people are like, oh, I couldn't sleep after I saw that. It's not like it had glowing red eyes and was holding a knife above her kid's head.
Yeah.
Or nephew's head. So I don't get the whole terrified of it. But that's an intriguing photo. And it doesn't look like one of those ghost app photos to me.
No.
It just looks like there's a kid standing back there staring out the branchway.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting. She should do some look and see if any kid might have suffered an accident at that park that may have perished at some point. Yeah,
it just looks like a kid playfully kind of peeking through a tree branch. It's nothing too creepy, but it is what it is.
All right. Where shall we go next?
Well, aliens are sabotaging our nuclear weapons, according to a wacky conspiracist. Dave, conspiracist. I can't say that word. Words is hard. Conspiracy theorists. Why did I sound like Charles Nelson Riley there? I have no idea.
I don't know.
Wacky. Conspiracy theorists have long believed the world's governments are hiding knowledge of extraterrestrials. The theory was boosted last year after it emerged that the Pentagon had managed a secret multi-million-dollar UFO program for years, and now an anonymous ufologist has claimed aliens are trying to prevent humans from using nuclear weapons because we simply cannot be trusted with such massive power, Dave. I agree. We're too irresponsible.
Thanks, aliens.
Yeah, well, with all this stuff between us and North Korea, Writing on the website Alien Revelations, the author states the example of former U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Bob Jacobs' interview with CNN's Larry King live show several years ago. Bob claimed his seniors warned him to stay mum after they witnessed a UFO at Vandenberg Air Force Base. He was told, "You are never to speak of this again." Bob had been the first officer awarded with an insignia for guided missiles in the Air Force. On that evening, he claims to have witnessed something inexplicable and told his superiors, "We've got a UFO." However, Jacob's superiors did not seem as excited as he was immediately told, "As far as you're concerned, this didn't happen." And according to ufologists, the alien sightings seem to occur, as it says in this story, mostly around nuclear bases. According to another website, Collective Evolution, another incident occurred at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana and is one of the most remarkable events in this history of UFO encounters with the military. This occurred in March of 1967 at a base that was responsible for a large amount of nuclear weapons. Witnesses here saw a red glowing UFO hovering just outside the front gate. After that happened, all of the nuclear missiles shut down and went completely dead. The conspiracy website asks if the UFOs are attempting to hinder human nuclear experimentation to prevent apocalyptic destruction. It writes, "We observed the UFOs were very interested in the nuclear weapons manufacturing facilities. A couple of nuclear weapons that were sent out into space were destroyed by the extraterrestrials. At the very end of the 70s and early 80s, we attempted to put a nuclear weapon on the moon and explode it for scientific measurements. They destroyed the weapon before it got to the moon." The author adds, "Could it be that extraterrestrials are trying to prevent humans from using nuclear weapons because we simply cannot be trusted with such massive power?"
Bitches.
Well, we're children, Dave. We're children of the universe.
Yeah, we are. And we're their petri dish, really. And if they like to come down here for a little anal probing, who are we to wipe out their cattle?
That's true. I mean, maybe that's a punishment. I never thought of that.
What?
If we're playing around with fire, so we get a poke in the butt.
Well, I
Think
don't know.
about it.
Is that how your family handled punishment? Maybe I don't want to know the answer to that. Let's just move on.
I can't say that because, the government's listening, Dave. At this point, and given all the testimony, it would not be surprising is the quote. Not about my family, but, however,
story.
However, NASA has always denied the existence of alien life. Paul Hertz, convenient name, astrophysics division of director at NASA headquarters in Washington, said last year, "The only life we know about is on Earth. NASA is always looking for life out there, and when we find it, we will tell you," said the Supreme Commander.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool. Where are we going to head off to next?
Well, speaking of NASA, Dave, NASA Virtual Exoplanet Tours Bureau lets anyone vacation in space. That's the headline. NASA has introduced its new Exoplanet Travel Bureau, a new part of its exoplanet exploration website that enables you to visit an alien world. So there you go.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, you can go on a vacation without leaving your home.
Do I wear sandals with socks or without when I go to an alien world?
With socks, because you don't know what you could pick up in your sandals.
That's true. You don't want to step in any bantha waste or anything.
That's true, and you never know what bacteria is there. While it would be fun to visit one of these distant planets in person, NASA points out that such a mission is still a distant dream. Here as a substitution is virtual reality and NASA's new interactive version of Kepler 186F. I know you've been desperate to go there, Dave, and now you can. NASA offers 360-degree interactive visualizations of various alien planets on its exoplanet exploration website, and the Kepler 186F offering is its latest edition. In it, visitors can look around within a world featuring tall mountains, a red sky, low sun, and multiple visible moons, which I will show you on any night outside my car window. It's true. I get a little tipsy, and by gosh, anything can happen, Dave. I'm just saying. Yeah. Anyone can access the interactive world within a browser. And of note, the interactive world lets visitors view it both with and without an atmosphere. Without an atmosphere, you're not breathing, but that's why you get to see it virtually.
Right, you're virtual.
Yeah.
I wonder if they, while you're doing it, they come up behind you and start to slowly suffocate you so you get that feeling.
I hope so. Yeah, it's
really? You're all about that self-erotic asphyxiation on another planet?
I like getting the Michael Hutchins experience, Dave.
Wow.
Or the David Carradine.
Soon.
Yeah, I mean,
too soon.
You do get the David Carradine, too. It's different levels, Dave. You order it right there on the website. Researchers don't know whether Kepler 186F has an atmosphere, or at least one capable of sustaining life, but it's fun to imagine what the landscape may look like. NASA's virtual world also has water and plants as hypothetical landscape features to stoke the imagination. Meanwhile, the Exoplanet Travel Bureau was created by the Exoplanet Exploration Program team. In it, users get access to new and previous exoplanet travel posters themed to look like retro travel ads. Oh, that's cute. Visitors can explore the planet's surface and learn more about it, as well as download the posters to use as wallpaper or create prints. Oh, look at that. Not Prince the singer, but,
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a shame because I miss Prince the singer.
I do, too.
And just so you don't think I was just choking there when I was trying to do the Prince squeal, but my voice is so shot from my allergies, I can't get any kind of upper level sounds, Tim. Listen, this is me trying to do the squeal, which you've heard me do for 30 years. Ready?
Right.
That was it. Maybe. That's like the closest. That's more like, instead of the screeching ow sound that he makes, it sounded more like my bathroom door just creaked open while we were talking. Ow.
Figured maybe you had ordered the Michael Hutchins off the NASA site. I wasn't quite sure.
I'm more of a David Carradine kind of guy.
Well, that's the full experience, and I'm glad you went with that. Yeah, that's I'm not glad that you went with that, but it's just saying that it's probably a more well-rounded experience. We should probably move on to the next story.
All right, Tim, where are we off to next?
We're going to Miami, Dave.
Yes, it's Miami.
A little warm this time of year, but that's okay because you can now own Miami's most haunted mansion.
I can?
Well,
I didn't know I could afford it. Thank you, Tim. Is this a personal loan? Are you co-signing? How is this going to happen?
Well,
my mind is reeling. It's so sudden. I mean, I hope you don't expect any kind of special favors now that you've helped me get my own haunted home in Miami.
I don't have that kind of money, Dave.
Well, I thought you said I could have the most haunted home in Miami.
Sure, if you got $4.5 million, you can own it.
Is that centavos? Drachma? Is it rubles? Rupees?
Dollars.
American?
Yeah.
Huh. 4.5 million, you say?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Right now I'm only about 4.9 million short.
So you have less than the 4.5 million?
A little bit less, if you look at it that way. I mean, You're kind of looking at the glass as all empty. I'm looking at the glass as, hey, is there something at the bottom of that glass? That's how I'm perceiving this whole moment.
Okay.
But for 4.5 million, I can have the most haunted house in Miami?
Yeah. A beautiful neoclassical estate, Dave, with white stucco walls.
Ooh.
And Bougainvillea strewn gardens, Dave.
What? Bougainvillea?
Yeah, Bougainvillea.
Is he related to Bob Vila?
Yes, he is. He's a cousin. He's a Cajun cousin, as a matter of fact.
You one of them there Bougainvilleas?
Yeah. Stand proudly in Miami's Little Haiti. So you could live right there in Little Haiti. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But its soon-to-be listed asking price of $4.5 million might be hindered by one small little detail, Dave.
That I don't have it?
Yeah, most of us don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's known as the most haunted house in South Florida.
Yikes.
That's the only thing holding it back, evidently.
That's probably not the only thing holding it back.
No. Villa Paula is allegedly haunted by the ghosts of Paula Millard.
Okay.
Or Millard.
Millard?
One of the
Millard?
Millard.
Potato.
The same. The wife of the Cuban consul for whom the villa was built in 1926. But she's got friends, however. The unexpected price tag isn't just for the villa, bought by Richard Siskin, brother to the notorious Martin Siskin, in 2003 for $275,000. See, if we would have been around in 2003 and had that kind of cash, we could have bought it.
Man, what a twist.
Yeah. I mean, that's appreciated quite a bit from $275,000 to $4.5.
See, Tim, just make the investment with me, because then at that rate, we should be able to flip it again in like 10 to 15 years for $32 billion.
I can see that. Yeah.
If I'm doing the math right, Tim, and I'm trying to use Common Core math, so I'm pretty sure I am.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense. The brothers agreed to list the mansion as part of a package deal with 3 adjacent lots zoned for mixed-use apartments. Miami's new $1 billion development, Magic City, is a few blocks away. Oh, that's what drove the price up. The development.
Magic City?
Yeah, Magic City.
Yeah.
According to the New York Post, residents and visitors have reported bizarre encounters with spirits over the years at the roughly 2,552 square foot property. One of them, a Cuban fashion designer named Fernando Garcia, who briefly rented Villa Paula just over a decade ago, told the Biscayne Times that while seated at a desk, a window pane fell from a frame behind him. When he stood up to check it out, a 40-pound block of plaster suddenly fell from the ceiling to the spot where he had just been sitting.
Yikes.
Well, that just sounds like disrepair, Dave.
That also sounds like Wile E. Coyote is haunting this place.
Yeah, a little bit.
Constantly missing and dropping plaster where the Roadrunner was, but is no longer.
Yeah. He told the publication, if I hadn't moved when I did, I would be dead. Biscayne Times' Terence Cantarella added that the Via Paula had earned its reputation as Miami's most haunted home. As mentioned, however, Paula has friends. They are considered to be 5 spirits occupying the building, although only 2 besides Paula have ever been identified. First, we have Paula Milford, who died in 1932 after complications from a leg amputation. The next alleged ghost is the infant illegitimate child of a house servant. The third spirit, according to the Biscayne Times, is the baby's mother searching for the child's grave. The spooky yet historic building is currently used as an art gallery to house and showcase works such as that of Renoir and Picasso to Wilfredo Lamb and Miami's homegrown genius, the late Purvis Young. Well, the idea of ghosts is enough to send many potential buyers running for the hills. Listing agent Jean-Louis Delbecq? That doesn't sound very continental, does it?
No.
One of Sotheby's International Realty believes it's a plus. Paranormal activity doesn't seem to bother the Via's artist in residence, Joe Shirishino, either.
Bless you.
Yeah, you're welcome. But that doesn't stop teams of people who have visited Via Paula's from experiencing strange occurrences. Shirishino has seen visitors, including psychics and paranormal investigators, drawn to certain areas of the home. 2 separate teams, for example, were drawn to the bathroom where the baby allegedly died. Shirishino recalls they told him, "There's the spirit of a dead baby in here," he told the New York Post.
Yikes.
Next, a psychic medium came to visit where Shirishino was working. They reportedly channeled the spirit of Paula, who wanted to convey a message to him. The psychic had this grip on my hands and said, "I love you. I love what you've done to the place," he says. "This house had a very important part of my life, and I love that you brought it back to life." There's no denying it's a handsome property. Via Paula's building materials were imported from Cuba, and it has a little Havana feel to it. There are also 18-foot ceilings and a gazebo that stands in a bucolic garden. Due to the estate's historic status, it won't be available to be torn down. The right buyer can choose to live in it as a home or convert it into a kind of community center or historical center as per initial hopes. Or, as Delbecq notes, buyers could cash in on the property's paranormal status and open a ghosts cafe, in quotes. There you go.
I'm in. Let's do it. Let's do it. Just help me out with that other 4.9 million, and we're in.
So you need an additional 400,000 on top of the 4.5 million?
Well, Tim, I've got to move. I've got a lot of stuff here, and I need to move. That's a big expense.
So you're saying we need to bring all the haunted dolls in and create a haunted doll house on
What else am I going to do with my haunted cafe?
Well, that's true. You need to set up.
That's it. You could have haunted doll tea parties where you get to sit at a table and drink tea with my haunted dolls, Tim.
I see.
The wheels are spinning. That's what you're smelling. The wheels are spinning.
And they need grease.
Wow, that's painful. Where are we off to next?
Well, the Pentagon's secret UFO program has investigated poltergeist connections to an alien mystery, Dave.
Can I just say this is the worst secret program ever because every week we're reporting on it.
Yeah, I know. They kind of have too many leaks there. Yeah.
How come the Colonel is able to keep from us what herbs and spices he makes his chicken so crack-like addicted?
I know.
But secret government plans are always leaking.
Yeah, too many people, too many cooks in the kitchen, I think is what it is. Yeah. The investigative I-team for CBS affiliate KLAS-TV in Las Vegas, Nevada, has brought forward new documents related to the secret Pentagon UFO program, first revealed by the New York Times in December. But even stranger than the documents, which delved into theoretical warp drive and extra-dimensional technologies, was the response provided by KLAS-TV by an unnamed senior manager within the program who connected the Pentagon's UFO program to poltergeist, invisible entities, and bizarre creatures. That's a mouthful right there. The new statement from BAASS, it's Boss, Dave, that's what the kids are calling it. It's Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies to KLAS-TV indicates the team contracted by the Pentagon delved into phenomena far beyond the UFO purview indicated by the NYT's original reveal. In some ways, continuing the paranormal research begun by founder Richard Bigelow in the 90s. The investigation by Boss provided new lines of evidence showing that the UFO phenomenon was a lot more than nuts and bolts machines that interacted with military aircraft, the senior manager said. The phenomenon was also involved a whole panoply of diverse activity that included bizarre creatures, poltergeist activity, invisible entities, orbs of light, animal and human injuries, and much, much more. The Boss manager also described research methodologies tailored to explain multiple eyewitnesses reporting widely different events. The new methodology premised on utilizing the human body as a readout system for dissecting interactions with the UFO phenomenon was put in place because Boss came to believe evidence indicated the UFO phenomenon was capable of manipulating and distorting human perception, making eyewitness testimony increasingly untrustworthy. It may sound like a convenient method for explaining away incongruous accounts rather than rigorous science, but the Boss statement claims the results of applying this new approach was a revolution in delineating the threat level of UFOs. While the statement advocates a wider approach to UFO research to avoid the myopic and unproductive focus of nuts and bolts machines, it also takes as assumed new conclusions about the exact nature of the UFO phenomenon, particularly in assigning agency to the phenomenon. The statement describes Boss's new forensic approach as aimed to bypass UFO deception and manipulation, layering a sinister overtone atop the already threatening descriptions of human and animal injury, presumably alluding to the cattle mutilation phenomena. To what degree the poltergeist, bizarre creatures, and invisible entities actively participate in the deception remains unclear. For now, compelling evidence or any evidence at all remains unavailable to the public. The statement and documents published by the I-Team further complicate the contracting process described by the New York Times, confirming the Defense Intelligence Agency originally sought bids under a different name, which was Advanced Aerospace Weapons Systems Application Program, a claim originally made by UFO researcher Paul Reddy and the UFOs and the National Security State author Richard Dolan in April. The contract documents reveal an initial payment of $10 million allocated to Boss. Boss, created specifically for the Pentagon contract, conducted research both from Bigelow Aerospace headquarters in North Las Vegas and an infamous Utah ranch formerly owned by Robert Bigelow. Ownership has since transferred to Adamantium Real Estate, who manages the property on behalf of an anonymous owner. Commonly known as Skinwalker Ranch, the 480-acre property has been the site of reported cattle mutilations, UFO sightings, and large ferocious animals with piercing yellow eyes that bullets couldn't injure. From 1996 to 2004, Bigelow investigated paranormal phenomena at and around the ranch under the umbrella of his now-defunct research group, the National Institute for Discovery Science. Could poltergeists, UFOs, and other paranormal phenomena all be related? While it's always possible new information from the Pentagon UFO program will provide actual data from Bigelow's AAWA or SAP research, the presence of electrical engineer Dr. Harold Putoff, one of the lead researchers for Boss, warrants a default for skepticism. Putoff, also one of the sources for the initial New York Times disclosure, has a long history of promoting pseudoscience, endorsing psychic fraud Uri Geller, and the coming to the defense of L. Ron Hubbard's E-meter in a 1974 document, Scientology, developed for use by the government. Putoff's research team, Earth Tech International, was subcontracted by Bigelow to write the recently revealed DIA reports. Those reports don't point to any new revolutions in science or UFO research. DIA documents for AAWSAP, like warp drive, dark energy, and the manipulation of extra dimensions, are more summations of existing theoretical physics than radical alien technologies. its bits and pieces of theoretical physics are dressed up as if it has something to do with potentially real-world applications, which it doesn't, theoretical physicist Sean Carroll told Business Insider. This is not something that's going to connect with engineering anytime soon, probably anytime ever. Both Bigelow Aerospace and Earth Tech International were contacted for comment. This article will be updated with their response if provided. While UFO researchers hope the reveal of AAWSAP will offer new opportunities for Freedom of Information Act requests and further reveals, it's the bright line to BAASS, which most expands our understanding of the bizarre research avenues in the Pentagon's top-secret UFO program. Outlandish claims of poltergeist, reality-distorting encounters, alien alloys, and groundbreaking technologies demand a subsequently high burden of proof. Disclosure of actual evidence could prove the difference between a radically new understanding of humanity's place in the universe and just another wasteful Department of Defense budget line item.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Very cool. Where are we off to next, sir?
You know, Dave, this has got to qualify for probably the most, let's say, sent story of the week. It's been added to your social media, my social media. I think,
sure.
Yeah, I think people have just bombarded us with this story over the week. Oh, yes. It's about this quote-unquote werewolf that's been shot and killed after attacking livestock in Montana. Some people even called it a chupacabra on your page and on mine. A creature shot and killed by a rancher in Montana this month is being referred to as a werewolf as authorities and scientists struggle to identify it. The massive canine was shot on May 16th after a Denton, Montana local said that it was terrorizing his livestock. He referred to it as a wolf. But according to a report by the New York Post, when authorities arrived, they agreed that it was something more. The creature had long gray fur, enormous claws, and an abnormally large head. I can't even say...
An abnormal one?
An abnormal one, Dave. An abnormal one. Officials from Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks confirmed that its ears were too big while its legs were too short to match the description of any common local animals. We will have no idea what this is until we get a DNA report back, says the organization's Bruce Ockley. He spoke to the Great Falls Tribune about the bizarre case. The quote-unquote werewolf had several unusual features that made experts hesitant to identify it. They reportedly felt its sharp teeth and front paws were too short to be a wolf, while its floppy ears and thick coat of fur were also baffling. Even many laymen who have seen the photos circulating on Twitter can tell that it is no common wolf. Of course, the discovery sparked a number of conspiracy theories on Twitter. The creature quickly became the focus of paranormal enthusiasts. It was referred to as a werewolf, a dire wolf, a dogman, a Frankendog. Ooh, have you ever had the Frankendog at the Twins game?
Oh, God, I used to have the Franken dogs at college. You remember? It'd be Franken dog night. We'd go in for beer and hot dogs for $5, all you could eat and drink.
Oh, yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah.
I miss those days. And even Bigfoot's Baby. This thing was called Bigfoot's Baby at one point. The Montana werewolf is interesting, wrote another. At first, I thought it was a bear, and then I thought I saw its paw in another photo. Clearly, Canidae. Not the country, Dave, but yeah,
that's Canada. Anyway,
right.
Canada, I think that's like a ginger ale.
Yeah, it is, and it's you know, they mixed it with lemonade now, and it's supposed to be it's supposed to be very refreshing.
Interesting. Yeah. They're not advertising, so don't talk about it, Tim.
Oh, that's true. If I didn't know any better, and I do, because it's a genetic incompatibility, I'd suggest a hybrid between the two. In all likelihood, it is a wolf dog, said this guy. Pretty sure they
Isn't that kind of redundant?
Yeah, I know, wolf dog, because they're both. Pretty sure they shot a werewolf or Bigfoot's baby in Montana, joked another. Some users dug deeper into mythology for an answer. Only one person...
Tim, is my baby, save it.
That's right. It's come full circle.
We now know what it meant. Save the baby Bigfoot. Is my baby, save it.
Some users dug deeper into mythology for an answer. Only one person posting the Native American legends of the Shunkawarakan Shunka Workin. I don't know.
I always feel good after having one of those in the morning, a big old Shunka Workin, and then I can move on with the rest of my day.
If you've ever cleared your chakras doing that, you've had a heck of a day.
What is that? It's a Native American tribe, the Shunka Workin?
The Native American legend of the Shunka Workin?
The legend. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm even saying it right. The mythological monster was a cross between a wolf and a hyena and was known for picking off livestock. Of course, there were skeptics chiming in on the conversation as well, many of whom were concerned that... Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Skeptics
chiming in?
Yep, chiming in.
Here. Who thought that they would have any idea on this?
I would think they'd remain silent, Dave, and just sit back and watch it with the rest of us. Many of whom were concerned that an innocent dog was killed due to all the paranormal panic. This makes me very sad, wrote one person. Yay, we found something we've never seen before. Let's immediately make it extinct.
Yeah, I'm with them.
Wrote one person.
No,
I think
not.
They said it kind of sarcastically.
Tongue-in-cheek. Oh, yeah. Okay,
and there you go.
I stand corrected.
No DNA results back as of yet, but they're checking. There you go.
Okay.
The werewolf. Yep.
Good times. Great oldies. Cool 108. Sorry. So that's it.
Totally.
The werewolf protocol is in effect, Tim.
That's it. Yeah, the werewolf is in full effect. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It is a weird-looking creature. It looks kind of Muppety to me, to be honest with you.
It does. It looks like something straight out of Jim Henson Studios.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to poo-poo the idea, Tim. I'm just saying that, to me, it just looks kind of fakey.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Where are we off to next?
We're going to China, Dave.
Peter Brady, what happened to your voice there? We're going to China.
Well, I have had some throat issues lately.
When it's time to change, it's time to rearrange.
I've had 2 endoscopies lately, so,
you are such an overachiever sometimes.
Yeah, they've ruined my throat. So thank you, endoscopy people.
Wow.
UFO crash in China, where it really did come from space, they're saying. It's something they made up. A UFO found in the forest in the Fujian province of China.
Be careful there.
I know what I'm saying. Prompted an immediate investigation to determining that the object really did come from space. The UFO, however, did not have aliens crawling out of it, nor did it come from a planet a million light years away. The investigation on the once mysterious object revealed its true origin, disappointing alien hunters. There have been several strange UFO sightings since the year started, so there was imminence hype. Imminence Hype, by the way, is my new rapping name. I don't know if you know.
I like that.
Yeah, Imminence Hype. Yeah. Upon the release of reports that a crashed UFO was found in a forest in China, the large metallic object was found by a pair of power plant employees. Say that 10 times fast. A pair of power plant employees while on their way to work. The workers initially thought it was a fragment of a wrecked UFO and contacted the police to investigate it. The investigation of the alleged UFO confirmed that it did indeed come from space, but its origin was from Earth. The object was determined to belong to the Long March 4C rocket, which recently launched the satellite named Keikaio, or Magpie Bridge. The satellite will be the first one to operate from the dark side of the moon, which is also a Pink Floyd album.
And everyone knows there's no dark side of the moon.
Right. The launch of the Long March 4C rocket and the Magpie Bridge satellite went fine, but apparently officials of China's space agency lost track of where the rocket's nose cone will land. The rocket's nose cone is what the 2 workers discovered in the Fujian forest. The location where the spacecraft component crashed is mostly woodland, but it is near some populated villages, Dave. Populated villages.
So you say.
Yes. The locals were actually recruited to help carry the once alleged UFO for safekeeping, and then the authorities retrieved the nose cone and transported it to the launch center. UFO spotted in China, even though it was not real, continues the trend of UFO sightings in 2018. The first alien sighting of 2018 was in Mexico, where a vertical UFO was, that's the name of my new album, by the way, was spotted hovering in the air. This was followed by an alleged UFO crash in Antarctica. Pilots also reported a UFO with a reflection in the border of Arizona and New Mexico, and the most recent UFO sighting was during a lightning storm in the Czech Republic, where a triangular UFO was spotted. Perhaps the most intriguing report of a UFO sighting so far this year, however, was the newly declassified video that showed U.S. Navy pilots in a run-in with a white UFO over the Atlantic Ocean in 2015. The UFO, which moved very fast, made one of the pilots scream in horror. Horror, Dave. Not a screaming horror, but a screaming in horror. And there you go. Yeah.
All right. Interesting stuff. Where are we off to next?
We go to Japan, Dave, not too far away from China.
Really?
Well, according to
relatively, I guess. Sure.
According to my globe.
Okay.
It's not a very good globe. I bought it online. Where a UFO boy has captivated the country. A teenager in Japan has become something of a sensation on the country's social media sites due to his purported ability to communicate with UFOs. Hirua Ido has been dubbed UFO boy by the researcher Toshitaro Yamaguchi.
What was that name?
Toshitaro Yamaguchi.
One more time.
Toshitaro Yamaguchi.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wasn't she a gymnast back in the Olympics?
No,
that was Christy Yamaguchi.
Yeah,
Sorry, so
Christy
close.
Yamaguchi, yeah. Who discovered...
She was an ice skater, wasn't she? I don't know. I'm probably messing all this stuff up.
Yeah, I think she was a ice skater, figure skater, yeah.
I'm not to be trusted with this information, obviously.
Yeah, that's okay, though. Who discovered the young man and his alleged psychic skills. To that end, Yamaguchi told Japanese media that Ido can sense via telepathy where a UFO will be and, in turn, photograph the object. Backing up the UFO researcher's bold assertion are 4 images of anomalous objects which were taken by Ido from different locations in Japan over the course of the last year. While the oddities in the photos are not particularly spectacular, if they were truly all captured by the same witness, it does make one wonder if there's a connection between the boy and the phenomenon. For his part, Yamaguchi likened Ido's ability to shamanism, and the teen's story have gone viral on Japanese social media. Remarkably, the veteran UFO researcher said that such UFO boys are not altogether a rare phenomenon, as in the past other youngsters have been said to boast the same ability to communicate with craft. However, Ido is the first to appear on the scene in quite some time, which Yamaguchi hopes is a promising sign for the future, since at 70 years old, he's uncertain how much longer he can chase a phenomenon. Perhaps the teen can alleviate those concerns by conjuring a craft in the sky for him. And there you go.
Interesting stuff. How many more do we have going here, sir?
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4 more stories.
Wow, they're going by quickly this week. All right, where are we off to next, Timothy?
This person... Timothy, oh my gosh, did I do something wrong?
Timothy, David, Dennis, get to the next story.
I got to tell you an interesting story here, real quick.
It'll be about time.
Wow.
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, so on Memorial Day, I had the family over. My 6-year-old nephew comes up to me and starts addressing me as Timothy. He just comes up.
Listen, Timothy.
He did. He's like,
is he channeling his inner Stewie?
Well, a little bit.
We seem to have a problem here, Timothy.
Right. So he comes up and he goes, "So when are we eating, Timothy?" And I looked at him and I went, "Pardon me?" Like I said, "Why are you calling me by my proper Christian name?" And he goes, "Because I can, Timothy."
Wow.
And I went, "Really?" I said, "Are we going to fight?"
You in place.
I said, "Are we about to fight?" And he started laughing. And he kind of ran upstairs. And I went to my sister and I said, "So why is he calling me Timothy?" And he goes, "Oh, he probably heard it from your mother." I went, "Oh, well, I see." So she went up and she reprimanded him for calling me by my proper Christian name.
Yeah.
So
stick with his unchristian name.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of, can I mention a weird thing that keeps popping up?
Sure.
That I thought we'd done a pretty good job of addressing over the last 3 weeks, but apparently still seems to be misunderstood here. Okay. All right. Tim and I are not breaking up. We're still very much in love.
Are we still going steady?
Yes.
Okay.
And many people are like, "Man, I really loved your show. I'm sorry you guys are going off the air." We're not going off the air. As a matter of fact, there's just more shows now. You can just hear more and more paranormal. And just to reiterate for the final time, hopefully, I've taken a position hosting Midnight in the Desert live 5 nights a week. It's based out of KNYE in Pahrump, Nevada, which is the station that Art Bell owned and where he began his shows and where he had his final show, Midnight in the Desert. I took over as a host, on I think it was May 7th, and I will be the host going forward on that. That is 3 nights a week, Monday through Friday, from 9 p.m. to midnight Pacific. That's 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Central Time. And then Tim and I are continuing with Beyond the Darkness every Saturday and Sunday. So you'll continually get brand new episodes with the two of us working together. Because I get the emails too, Tim, that, oh, we really liked when you and Tim worked together. I'm sorry you guys aren't going to be doing that anymore. I don't know if you're floating new information out there, Tim, but we're still working together. Or are you? Maybe you're out there when I'm gone, and are you testing new co-hosts to see if there's going to be a better fit for you?
No.
Charo maybe checking out Flava Flav.
Flavor Flav's going to be on the show?
I don't know. I'm asking. Maybe you're auditioning people, and I don't know about it.
No, this show is you and I.
Right. So we will continue delivering you brand new shows every Saturday and Sunday. And from time to time, we may throw in an occasional extra episode because we're in the mood, or play a throwback episode if one of our favorite guests passes away or something major happens, or we want to revisit a story and update it. We may play the old episode and then come in with a brand new episode for you to hear. And then we're still working on True Crime Tuesday. Every Tuesday together, you can hear us. So it's super easy. You get Monday through Friday, Midnight in the Desert. Tim is not a part of that show as a host or co-host or producer at this point. But, and I say at this point, he has agreed to do fill-ins. So if there's times that I cannot host the show, or I'm going to be on vacation, or I'm having myself bikini waxed. What do you call that? Bermuda-ing or something down there?
That's a Brazilian, Dave.
No, in my case it's Bermuda, Tim, because once you go down there, you'll never be seen again. If it's one of those chances, Tim's already agreed that he'll be happy to step in and fill in as host of Midnight in the Desert. So we're still working together in that sense. It's just that this is, we both have career paths. We both have things that we do outside of Beyond the Darkness, and we support each other in those venues, and we're going to continue going forward. So that's what we're doing. We're still bringing you Beyond the Darkness Saturdays and Sundays. We're bringing you True Crime Tuesdays on Tuesdays. You get some extra episodes here and there of both shows, and then you get me 5 nights a week on Midnight in the Desert, and Tim will be my first go-to fill-in host for that. I do have a few people that we may cycle through in case Tim's unavailable as well, but Tim is my first go-to that will be filling in and doing that on Midnight in the Desert. So that's said and done. There's no breakup. We're still madly in love. I still see my unborn children in his eyes.
Wow.
Everything is good. Everything is good. And here's something cool. Our app, Tim, on our Darkness Radio app, we've now added Midnight in the Desert on there. So if you've downloaded it, you just want to go right now, refresh it, make sure that you've updated your app. Now you'll be able to find Darkness Radio, Beyond the Darkness. You'll be able to find our Darchives. You'll be able to find True Crime Tuesday. You'll be able to find the Tom Bernard Show that I'm a part of. You'll also be able to find Midnight in the Desert live stream and Midnight in the Desert archive. So everything's there. There's everything, and it's free still. Free app, Tim.
Well, that's good. I mean,
right?
Yeah.
So it's all available in one place. It's convenient, and yes, I know I've been saying we're working on getting an iTunes version, and we've tried. I've had some really good developers work on it, and they can't get it approved. So if any of our listeners out there are adept at knowing how to job the system and get an iTunes version of our app going, please contact me, Dave at darknessradio.com, because we'd like to get a free iTunes app up there for people as well. So hit me up, Dave at darknessradio.com, and we can make that happen. All right, so we've addressed that. I don't think there's anything left to say on that. I hope people get it and understand it. We're in it for the long haul. There's no way we're going to bury this thing. It's the zombie that won't go away. We started this January 1st, 2006. And what do we, I plan on at least cresting to 2026, Tim, and having a full 20 years of the show, and then hopefully going beyond that, as long as you and I can talk.
Yeah.
Which hopefully will be forever. They're going to have to pry this microphone from our cold, dead hands before we would part ways and stop doing the show.
Sure. Absolutely.
That's it. I'm off my rant cage, but I just want people to understand, because I don't want people to think, oh, well, we'll stop listening or not tuning in anymore because they think we're not doing it. We're doing it. We're here every week for you. And I'm making the same comments on Midnight in the Desert so people are aware. But let's wrap up. We've got a couple more stories to cover. And where shall we go next, Tim?
Well, this woman smells dead, people, and I think there might be something wrong with her nose.
Yeah, geez, yeah. New cologne?
I think so, yeah. She might need a tuner of the old sniffer. A psychic coach claims she can sniff out impending death on people close to the grave, and I'm not going anywhere near her. A former secretary turned psychic coach says she can sniff people that are close to the grave, but describes her gift as useless because she cannot save them. Oh, good for her. 24-year-old Ari Kala claims she first discovered her sixth sense when she visited her dying uncle, aged 12, and smelled a sickly, sweet odor that no one else in her family could pick up. After brushing aside her psychic ability for fear of being different, she this year decided to pursue her calling properly when she grew disillusioned working as a legal secretary in Sydney, Australia. Now, Ari has waved goodbye to the corporate world by teaching women how to harness their inner psychic powers, but revealed she never tells people when she notices the smell of death on them because it is not her place. Would you want her to tell you if you were...
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think.
Yeah, because if you smell death on me, maybe just because you smell it doesn't mean that it's true death. Maybe there's a way to reverse what's going on.
Right.
And by giving me that power, I may be able to, with my own magical powers of intent, flip that thing around.
Right.
So I would love to know that. Plus, if you have insight, if somebody would have been able to tell me, earlier that my mom was dealing with cancer, I would have been able to take advantage of more time with her and more experiences. So, yeah, I would want that for anybody.
Ari from the leafy Hunter Valley of New South Wales, Australia, said, the year before I started high school, I visited my uncle to be with him as he died. The night before his death, I picked up this oddly sick, sweet, rotten kind of smell in the house.
Yum.
Yeah, really. I thought it was the smell of his remains, as I had never smelled that before, but no one else could smell it. I realized later it was the frequency of death I could smell. Since then, I've experienced the same thing around people with terminal diseases or the very elderly, too many times to count. Sometimes it feels like a burden. I used to want to say something. However, I realized it's not my duty. No, it is your duty.
Yeah.
Or maybe it is her duty.
Don't get your duty on my carpet.
That's right. You're going to clean it up, lady. I don't put much effort into developing it. It's kind of useless. How could it help anyone? Oh, God. How could I walk up to strangers with the smell and help them? What if they don't know they're going to die soon? I told them that, and they weren't aware it could be catastrophic. I don't see how it's up to me to interfere with their fate. Ari believes everyone...
Then why are you talking about it? Just shut your pie hole and leave it alone.
That's true.
Seriously, why would you be... Listen, she can call me up. We'll hash it out on the show here. But what a line of bullshit this whole conversation is. Why would you talk about having this ability? Because now that everybody knows you can do this, supposedly, how would you not approach her and watch? And if she starts to get that little kind of... look on her,
like she smelled something awful.
Yeah. And you're going to be like, wait, did somebody fart or am I dying? You're going to constantly be in a state of panic, right?
You either died or you died, one or the other.
Right. Yeah. I don't. To me, that's it's not my job. Well, then shut up.
Yeah.
Go away.
True.
Either make it your job or don't. Not that I think people should always know how they're going to die or when they're going to die. But again, if you can pick up on the fact that there's something dying within them, cancer, whatever is causing this, you should alert them. They should know.
That's
Although,
true.
Would you be offended, Tim, if somebody came up to you out of the blue and they're like, you smell like death?
I would first check my pants, I think, but
right.
But
no. Would you want somebody to approach you with that? Because here's the problem: I do see the other side of this pendulum, the other side of the coin, if you will.
Yeah.
Is the fact that there are a lot of people who believe that they are sensitives, and do you really want them to? Do you really want them coming forward and telling you things and getting you all worked up, and then you go to your doctor's like, no, you got nothing.
I I wouldn't mind it if somebody told me, but I would also follow it up. With, like you said, with a medical professional. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's okay if the doctor says, you know what, I'm not seeing anything. But in my case, the doctor's seen me quite often.
So let me just clarify this. Yeah. You would want, if I could smell death, you would want me to tell you.
Sure.
Well, Tim, I wanted to let you know you smell remarkable. You always smell like cinnamon cookies, and that's part of why I love you.
Well, it's probably because I eat a lot of them.
Yep.
Just saying.
All right. Where are we off to next?
Well, let me just finish this story real quick. She says...
sorry, there's more. I'm sorry. That's right. I interrupted her because I was tired of her blathering about how this isn't something she should be talking about or doing while she's talking about it doing
There's an interesting twist here, Dave, where
really?
You might go, oh, my God, really? She delved into the world of spirituality after being driven to depression working as a secretary in a major Sydney law firm. There's that. Now, Dave, she coaches women, many part of the witchcraft community, aged 25 to 45, about how to put their psychic skills to good use, even though she's not using them herself. Hypocrisy much?
Those that can, those that can't teach. Is that the whole deal?
That's it. Ari said everyone has access to their psychic ability, but usually it's suppressed. Children are told to grow up from an early age. You're expected to fit in, be quiet, and behave as normal as possible. They're also told their imaginations aren't real, which causes these psychic abilities to switch off. As a child, I could read people's emotions and always dreamed about things that came true. People didn't like it, and as I grew more fearful of being judged, I switched these abilities off. I was depressed working a 9-to-5 job, but then realized I had a calling. I lost some friends and family, but it was the best decision I ever made. I teach empowerment from within. It's the ability to attract whatever you want, whether that's clients, money, or your dream life. I used to get a bit of negativity from trolls online, but I have learned it's okay to be weird and just laugh it off. And now, of course, she's teaching. So there you go.
All right. Where shall we go next, sir?
Next, we go to a Virgin Mary statue that's crying rose-scented tears.
Ooh.
Yeah,
that doesn't smell like death. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
how refreshing.
That's in New Mexico. Thousands of Christians from the state of New Mexico and beyond have been flocking to the city of Hobbs, not Calvin, Hobbs, Dave,
okay.
To witness that many are considering a real-life miracle, a statue of the Virgin Mary crying tears that allegedly smell like roses. Churchgoers at Our Lady of Guadalupe Church in Hobbs first noticed the scented tears coming out of the statue's eyes last Sunday during Mass. Father Jose Pepe Segura said that a parishioner informed him about the bizarre phenomenon, as he himself had people wipe the statue's face clean, only to see the tears flowing down the Virgin Mary's face yet again. That's when I saw that she was really crying, Father Segura told the Las Cruces Sun-Sentinel. I think it's a reminder for all of us to get closer to God and stop being violent. As word of the alleged miracle spread among parishioners, more and more people came to the church to witness it for themselves. Visitors started coming from all over New Mexico and neighboring states, so the church stayed open around the clock. We've seen cases of weeping religious statues before, but what really sets this one apart from the others is that the Virgin Mary statue is made of bronze, so it technically is impossible for it to retain any fluids, let alone an oily substance that reportedly smells like roses. I'm sorry, you're going to say something?
No, I'm just,
okay.
I said,
Yeah.
I was Yoda-ing at that moment.
Oh, okay. Ricardo Flores Castanis? Yes. The sculptor who created the statue at a New Mexico foundry was recently interviewed by a local news station and said that none of his statues he has made in the past have ever wept before, and that he doesn't have an explanation for this one, why this one is doing just that. I couldn't tell you. I mean, I think that faith is an issue. Technically, of course, the metal doesn't hold water, he said. If you see my Catholic side, of course, it's beautiful. But if you see the technical side, there's no explanation that I can find. This is completely something that I've never seen before. Last Thursday, officials of the Diocese of Las Cruces, Mexico, arrived in Hobbs to investigate the reported miracle. The church was closed for 4 hours while experts inspected the statue and collected tear samples, but it might take a long time before they get some clear explanation. Church officials...
Hey, guys, come over and give this a smell. It smells like a rose. I like it. I cannot figure where it's coming out. That's my Spanish accent, in case you couldn't tell.
Wait, here. Can you hear the typing now? Dear Dave, there are no Italians in New Mexico.
I'm going to tell you, I could go for a big taco just like my mama used to make.
Dear Dave, not all New Mexicans eat tacos. We do have McDonald's in New Mexico, you know.
Yes. All right.
Church officials will have to X-ray the statue, interview... How are you going to X-ray copper? X-ray the statue, interview witnesses, and dig as far back into the past as possible to establish whether this is a real miracle or hoax. The whole process could take years, they're saying. But those Christians who have already witnessed the statue's tears don't really care about the investigation. To them, it's already a true miracle. There you go.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. All right. Well, good for them. That's cool.
Yeah.
I hope they can't find an answer. And you're right. Bronze is not a porous material that you could, make something leak through. That's, I don't know. Although I would want to know what they clean it with. And if there is a cleaning solution that they use to keep the bronze shiny and nice looking.
Yeah, that's true.
If it gets hot there. And Tim, it gets very hot here in New Mexico.
In New Mexico.
Yeah. I wonder if the metal is sweating and the polish is running.
Yeah.
But that's just a thought. I could be wrong. It may be the tears of the Virgin Mary coming through, that it smells like roses. Or it could be Bob's Brass Polishing Cream. I don't know.
Bob's Brass Polishing Cream.
Which is our new advertiser on the show,
That's
Tim.
right. Go out and get some of Bob's Brass Polishing Cream, available at Kmart.
All right. Is that still a thing?
I don't know. There's Kmart down on Lake Street.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Next stop. Woo-hoo.
Leads right to Stephen Hawking, Dave. Who knew he was a party animal?
I did. Just look at him.
I am right now, actually. Just
Stop.
saying.
He's gone. Don't talk ill of the dead, Tim.
I'm not.
All right.
I'm looking at him. He looks like a party animal.
He does, doesn't he?
I see the canned koozie right there on his chair.
Hot, 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 hot. He's got one of those helmets on with the two beers on each side.
Yes, I'm looking right at it.
What's going on with party man Steve Hawking before he passed away?
Steve Hawking, world's leading cosmologist.
Not cosmetologist.
Cosmetologist.
I just want people to know that. Yeah, that's makeup. That's not his forte.
Cosmologist.
No, you're right. Cosmologist, I think, but not cosmetologist. I don't want people to think we're talking about a makeup guru, Stephen Hawking.
Right. Hosted a party for time travelers, but no one showed.
That be Stephen?
Stephen, yes.
The cosmologist might be Stephen Hawking.
He might be, yeah. He hosted a party for time travelers, but nobody showed, Dave. It's kind of sad.
What's that say about you?
Yeah. Never let it be said that Stephen Hawking was without a sense of humor. The Cambridge University professor, convention exploding thinker. He did have a sense of humor, Dave. See, people think that we were being mean to him. No, we had a sense of humor. He had a sense of humor. We had this thing going on between us where we had a sense of we were throwing the humor back and forth. People didn't. Yeah. You're like,
I'm staying away from it because I've gotten a lot of hate mail.
All right.
So I'll just leave him be. He's gone now. We miss him.
We do miss him. The Cambridge University professor, convention exploding thinker, and best-selling author who outlived a devastating ALS prognosis was a complex genius who democratized science for interested masses. And he had his fun making a point. Hawking joked about hosting a time travel party for a bunch of people who never showed. I have experimental evidence that time travel is not possible, Hawking told a room full of reporters at the Seattle Science Festival in 2012 in answer to a question about the possibility of time travel. I gave a party for time travelers, but I didn't send out the invitations until the party. I sat there for a long time, but no one came. That's what he said. Stephen William Hawking was born in Oxford in 1942. To a family of eccentric doctors, philosophers, and mathematicians. His family lived in a rundown house, ate silent meals with each reading a book, and got around town in a decommissioned taxicab. Hawking was a graduate student when he was diagnosed with ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease in 1963 and initially was given only a few years to live. He suffered depression, and ALS eventually reduced him to being able only to move one finger in his eyes, and yet he went on to become the generation's thought leader on gravity, quantum mechanics, and black holes. Hawking's best-selling book, A Brief History of Time, published in 1988, sold 10 million copies. A biopic of his life, A Theory of Everything, was released in 2014, starring Eddie Redmayne as Hawking, for which Redmayne won an Academy Award for Best Actor. What would it take to make time travel a reality, and how would that affect the present reality? A reporter asked Hawking at the 2012 Science Festival. Hawking's full answer, as reported by ARS Technica, is in Stephen Hawking's quotes. It says, "We are all traveling forward in time anyway. We can fast forward by going off on a rocket at high speed and return to find everyone on Earth much older or dead. Einstein's general theory of relativity seems to offer the possibility that we could warp space-time so much that we could travel back in time. However, it is likely that warping would trigger a bolt of radiation that would destroy the spaceship and maybe the space-time itself. I have experimental evidence that time travel is not possible. I gave a party for time travelers, but I didn't send out the invitations until after the party. I sat there for a long time, but no one came." Hawking was entirely joking about his party. Either in June of 2009, he, quote-unquote, hosted a party filmed by the Discovery Channel. Servers popped champagne corks and poured bubbly into flutes. A sign hung over the door saying, "Welcome, time travelers." The camera panned to a grandfather clock slowly ticking towards 5 o'clock. An invitation read, "You are cordially invited to a reception for time travelers hosted by Professor Stephen Hawking, to be held at the University of Cambridge." Of course, the invitation gave an address, 52 degrees, 12 degrees, 21 degrees north, and all these other coordinates at a time of 12 o'clock on 6/20/2009. No RSVP was required. The 2-minute video shows Hawking in a suit, sitting in silence, awaiting his no-show guests, the world's leading...
Oh,
yeah, it's very sad. It is. The world's leading cosmologist never breaks
Mom, I don't want to go to Stevie Hawking's parties. They suck.
No. Naturally, since this was a party for people traveling back in time, Hawking didn't send out the invitations until after the party date, and still no one showed. Hawking never tired of translating complex theoretical equations into understandable concepts for lay people, which made him one of the most revered and approachable intellectuals of the century. Related story from us, Stephen Hawking was born exactly 300 years after the death of Galileo and died on Einstein's birthday, believe it or not. You can ask what will happen to someone who jumps into a black hole. I certainly don't think he will survive it, Hawking said in 1978, as recounted in his...
I think he ends up working in radio, to be honest.
Yes,
that's the answer.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens, as recounted in his New York Times obituary. On the other hand, if we send someone off to jump into a black hole, neither he nor his constituent atoms will come back, but his mass energy will come back. Maybe that applies to the whole universe. Hawking died at his Cambridge home on March 14th of 2018. He was 76.
What a cheery guy.
Yeah. Yeah, he was.
Oh, boy. And at his funeral, did you know that you had to register to be able to attend his funeral?
Really?
And they allowed for time travelers because you had to put in your birth year and everything. And I think it allowed up to like 2037. So you could have been born in 2037 and attend his funeral because they want you to check in as a time traveler. I think that's funny that he kept that up all the way through the very end.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, good on him.
Yeah.
All right. Is that it?
One more story.
One more story, and then we're all done.
Yep.
All right. Where are we off to for our last story?
Rural Pennsylvania, Dave. What keeps exploding there? The ATF now is trying to solve some mystery booms. I think it's from all the sauerkraut and sausage.
Boom, boom, boom. Let's go back to my room where we can do it all night, and I will make you feel right. I said boom, boom, boom. Could it just be that somebody's playing that on really loud speakers?
I don't think anyone's played that on loudspeakers since 1986.
I also want you to know that's, I think, only the second time on the show I've ever sang it without kind of the Eddie Vedder voice.
Probably, yeah.
And I didn't pull the boom, boom, boom. Let's go back to my room. So
yeah.
Excellent.
Explosions without explanation. That's what we do in elevators. Yep. Have erupted in a rural region about an hour north of Philadelphia more than 20 times in the last 2 months, and federal experts have now joined in the effort to solve the ear-popping mystery. The loud booms have awakened residents in the northern section of Bucks County, Pennsylvania. I almost said Philadelphia. But state police have been unable to determine the cause of the sounds. The first blast was reported on April 2nd in the Quakertown area. State police did not say what they think may be the origin of the unusual disturbances, which have led to numerous conspiracy theories among the locals, from alien landings to meteor strikes to stolen military munitions. Each of the incidents over the last 2 months have occurred between the hours of 1 and 3:30 a.m., state police said May 30th in the first statement of their investigation. A police spokesman said he could not provide more details about the exact dates and locations of each blast. An agent with the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms confirmed that the ATF is now involved in the investigation. She said the Bureau is aiding the state police and local police departments, including Springfield, Nakamixon, is that how you say it? And Richland Town. There you go.
I don't know. I've not been.
I've not been to that part of Pennsylvania. But if you're from Pennsylvania and you absolutely hate me, hey, email me and tell me I'm a jerk. There you go. That's the story. And I'm sticking to it.
That's all for today?
That's it for today.
All right. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we've got your stories next on ParaShare.
Beyond the darkness.
Welcome back. You're tuned into the best in paranormal talk radio, your weekend home for the greatest paranormal talk radio team in the history of talk radio teams, Tim. Forget Barney and Fred. Forget Ed and Ralph. I don't even know if they had radio shows, but we're it. It's us. We guys. Our moms have told us this, Tim.
Yeah.
Our moms don't lie.
No, they don't.
It's Supernatural News Saturday along with ParaShare. What is ParaShare, you ask? Well, it's a good question. I know we have new listeners checking out the show. ParaShare is where we share your stories. So you can email in your stories of your own experiences. They can be short, they can be middle, they can be long. But if you want to share your stories, just use punctuation and spell check. That's all I ask. And we will be happy to share them on our shows on Saturday nights. So that's what we're going to do. And then I also want you to know that if you write it really well as a narrative and it's descriptive enough and it's your true story, we may feature it on an upcoming episode of Theater of the Mind, which we feature in the middle of Sunday night's episodes. Tomorrow night is a spooky one, Tim, about a creepy-ass doll that's in my house. Not for much longer, though.
No?
I'm going to part with it. I'm going to allow it to go up for sale next week.
Aw.
And, well, I'm going to share the story so people can hear it and decide for themselves, is this something you want in your house? Let's get to some stories here, Tim. Hey, Double D and Tasty T. Ooh, kind of like that. Those sounds like good rapper names for us.
Yeah.
And then she goes on to say, I like my tea with a little sugar and foot problems with a smiley icon.
What?
Wow, would you two get a room? This is a show that I didn't want to be a part of.
Huh.
It's La La Lee here, is what she says. Okay. I was so surprised to hear my previous ParaShare read on air. My comma game was weak. I will try to do better. It is so helpful to get these experiences out there, and I thank you for the opportunity. As I said before, I have had an odd life, but one experience is the big one that puzzles my brother and I to this day. Deep breath. I'm going to give you the big one, winky face. Wow. All right. My brother James and I were born and raised in a religious cult. We were to keep separate from the world and lived a strict Old Testament rules life. We were not exposed to much TV, music, or movies, and were taught that Lucifer, the devil, and his fallen angels, demons, were beautiful beings. That is how they trick you. I lay that out as a foundation just to say that we had no point of reference for what happened to us. We did not know anything about haunted houses, ghosts, or aliens. When I was 7 and my brother 9, back in 1984, we moved into a house deep in the woods. Mom called it the house in the holler. Holler is an old Southern word for down the road a ways. I remember laying in bed one night when I heard a loud boom, like something heavy fell. That'd be more like a boom, as opposed to boom, which is like a cannon fodder, Tim.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Like something heavy fell.
Ah.
Everyone was in bed. I asked Mom what the noise was. She said, there's an empty gallon milk jug sitting in the kitchen. When those plastic jugs are empty, pressure builds up inside the container and the tops pop off, making a loud noise. I trusted my mom, even though I would hear these nightly booms fairly regular when there were no empty jugs. This is how it started. Sometimes the noise was in the living room, sometimes like something hit my bedroom wall. Boom! James and I were playing in his room one day when a boxed-up chess set sitting on the top shelf of his closet was launched across the room. It did not fall out. It was thrown to the other side of the room. Chess pieces scattered. We would put a box fan in the window of James's room to cool it down, windowsill resting on the top, and it would be thrown with force across the room. Sometimes when James was in bed, I could see the bed shake up and down with a fast vibration. Well, James might have been not telling you everything he does when he's in bed. I'm just saying. Mom said, we live near train tracks. And the movement, do you think, I would love to be a fly on the wall. Mom, I went into James's room, and he was in bed under the covers, and his whole bed was shaking and vibrating up and down. Yeah, honey, we live very near railroad tracks. I don't think that's the only Pullman that they're dealing with, Tim. I could be wrong.
Not at all.
And the movement from that was traveling, causing all of this. Dark shadows would peer and move. It felt like we were being observed. Mom reminded us, that we are God's chosen people, and we shouldn't be worried because he will protect us. She did move our beds in each of our rooms so that we could look down the lit hallway and see each other at night. We were afraid, and we didn't live near train tracks. I'm just saying. Sometimes things are not always supernatural, Tim. They're just very natural, and nobody should be ashamed by it, especially a grown man. I'm just saying, Tim, think about that. One night I awoke and looked down the hallway at James. We locked eyes, and I saw a look of fear on his face. Everything was moving in slow motion. Complete silence, except I could hear my heart slowly beating. I moved my gaze from my brother's face and looked in the hallway right outside my door. There was a thing. A 3-foot-tall thing slowly moving down the hallway toward James. It had very long arms that seemed to drag on the floor. I didn't see legs, but it seemed to have feet. It didn't have a neck, but there was definition between its body and head. I couldn't move. I had the distinct feeling that I was not supposed to see this, that I shouldn't be awake. I came to the next morning and asked James what had happened last night. He said there were these black masses about 3 feet tall, like clouds of moving dense smoke. One was in the hall heading towards me. One was beside my bed, and the other one leaning over you. It was either taller than the others, or it was on your bed. I saw you looking at me, but I couldn't move, he said. He recalled the same feeling I had, slow motion, silence, and seeing something he shouldn't. We saw different things, but we had shared the same frightening experience. We took this to Mom. After listening, she was dismissive and said, we must have been dreaming. James and I stuck together in this scary house, and all we had were each other. He has more memories than I do, which I have encouraged him to share. The majority of the activity was in his room. After about a year, we abruptly left the house and moved in with our grandmother. Mom refused to talk about any of it. 11 years later, I touched a Ouija board for the first time. It said, I'm sorry. I never should have spoke. I asked if it knew me. It said, Doll Room, Fiery End. It was a neat experience, but I had no clue what any of that meant. I didn't get any more communication from the board, and a few days later I told my mom about the Ouija board and what it had said. Her eyes got wide, and she said, "I have to tell you something. Remember the house in the holler?" she said. "Remember how your grandmother used to always make dolls?" she continued. "Well, those dolls were all over your room. That was the doll room," Mom said. "The house was possessed." I made excuses for things you and James saw and heard because we had nowhere else to go. I did not want you to be afraid. Then she told me the reason we finally left the house. The night before we left, a green mist appeared in my room. I could see through it like it was smoke. It moved like spider legs over to me and spoke. "What did it say?" I asked. "One sentence that included your name," she said. At the time, I took it as a threat, and that's why we left. But I think now it may have been a promise. So I pressed her, but she would not say what the mist told her. "What about the fiery end?" I asked. She said the guy that moved into the house after us set the house on fire with him in it. The house burned to the ground. She warned that talking about demons gives them power, and she would not discuss this any further. A few days later, Mom approached me and said that she was concerned that whatever was in that house had an attachment to me. She had spoken with the elders of the church, yes, the cult, and that's part of her story, not me throwing that in, and they felt an exorcism was best. Not that I was possessed, but that if it was going to follow me unless I confronted it. The minister will call it out, it will manifest in some form, and you will have to tell it to leave, she said. I told her, no, I'm not doing that scary, scary thing. I had left the cult at the age of 15. I did not buy their BS, and I was not having any problems. Their currency was fear, not mine. I only remember one other time my mother spoke of the house in the holler. She said she had a friend that was fascinated with the paranormal. She wanted to tell him what happened there, and had James and I share our experiences as well. She still refused to say what the green mist said to her. She passed at the age of 55 from cancer, and it is a secret she took to the grave. While I've had more experiences, I have not had contact with anything that has referenced that house since I was 18. James has experienced 0 paranormal activity since that house. Yikes, that's a little bit creepy, Timothy.
Jeez. Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, to say the least. I mean, that's a lot of activity. Whoa, creepy. I'm not gonna lie. I've got a little shiver that's run up and down my back telling that story. Thank you for sharing that. Our next story comes to us from Ralph, Tim.
Okay.
Ralph has a story to share.
All right.
Are you ready for it?
Ready.
Ralph's tale?
Mm-hmm.
It was October, the end of a very warm Indian summer weekend. A troop of us kids sat milling around in the field behind a neighbor's house, trying to decide what to do on such a boring, lackluster day. As I was watching the sky, I noticed a bunch of buzzards, which wasn't unusual. But what seemed weird was that they were circling around, attacking another very large bird. The buzzards were relentlessly dive-bombing this strange, light-colored bird, which had to have had a wingspan of about 20 feet. Never have I ever seen such a large bird, which never flapped its wings. There was about 6 of us, everyone scattered, running home to gather shovels, hose, or even a pickaxe. This was California in 1964, in the small town of Danville, with a population of just 6,000 people. To the west of us is Mount Tamalpais. I don't know how to say this, Tim. Tamalpias? Tamalpais?
I don't know.
We'll go with that. Mm-hmm. A low-level hilly ridge with a massive oak tree at the very top in the shape of a grizzly, which we called the bear tree. Below, on the valley floor, meandered a small creek, Walnut Creek, a child's paradise filled with pollywogs, small fish, and handmade rafts. Directly to the east looms the most distinctive geological feature of the East Bay, called Mount Diablo, which, if I'm correct, Tim, is French for the can of spinach.
Yes, it is, yeah.
A single mount rising nearly a mile high and filled with sandstone caves. was the source of many legends of Native American habitating the mountain performing pagan rituals. Well, we all rejoined at the field and commenced digging at an agreed-upon spot. Shovels, picks, and hoes flailing, dirt flying in all directions, and it was a wonder that no one was gouged to death. Then it happened. While I was using a shovel, jumping on the top of the blade, I hit something quite large and soft. The blade sank into this thing, and blood started oozing out, covering the soil, forming a wet, messy bog. We all jumped out of the hole we were digging in and trying to see what the object was. A toad? But no ordinary toad. No, sir, this toad had to be as large as the blade of my shovel. I was so upset, and without saying goodbye, I turned around and headed home. It was that night that the idle life of this boy would take a very sinister turn. I shared a room with my younger brother. He had the upper bunk, and I was on the lower of the wooden bunk. We turned in, and I fell into a restless sleep, when suddenly, startled, I awoke to see that in the dim light, what I can only describe as a very large hand with 3 long fingers right in my face. I quickly covered my head under the blanket when a swampy, sickly smell of blood assailed my senses. I let out a scream, jumping up, and started running. The house we lived in was 3 bedrooms and very long, with the 3 bedrooms at one end, followed by a long hallway to the living room and kitchen. As I ran out of my room, I could see a light at the end of the hall where the pick was located, in the living room. I made for the light, running as fast as I could, but the faster I ran, the walls of the hall began extending forward. After what seemed like an eternity, I finally could not run anymore, and as I collapsed, I felt this giant hand around my leg start dragging me back to my room. It was very big. I was so terrified, I was paralyzed. Then this thing pushed me under the bed, where my last memory was me peering out from the recess of the floor under the bed to see 2 large red slits looking back at me. For 3 straight nights I endured this, what I assumed was a nightmare. After the 3rd night, no more of the night terrors. But the funny thing was that after the 3rd night, I awoke to find my entire body covered in warts. The doctor said he had never seen a case of warts as severe as mine. This is my true story. Ugh.
Weird.
That's freaky.
Yeah.
Nice story, Wart Boy. Thank you for sharing with us.
That's not nice.
What?
You don't call people Wart Boy.
Well, he's covered from head to toe in mysterious warts.
What
would you nickname him? Bumpy? Lumpy?
No. I wouldn't.
Braille Boy?
No.
Oh.
I wouldn't nickname him anything.
Oh, that's you. Where I grew up in Chicago, everybody had a nickname.
Well.
Just saying, Tim.
That's not nice.
The name fits. So I had an interesting story, news story. I don't know if you call it. It's an article that popped up, and I held it back from you because it seemed like it fit more into the ParaShare.
Okay.
So let's share this one, if you don't mind.
Sure.
And even if you do mind, too bad, we're sharing it. What are you going to do about it, huh?
Well, nothing, really.
Wart Boy friend?
Wow.
What?
That's not nice.
What's not nice?
Just
calling it as I sees it.
Well, throwing out random nicknames like that.
Friend of Wart Boy. All right. Supernatural Staffordshire. From Damon Sims. Looking at one man's paranormal experience in his own home. Sometimes the paranormal enters our lives in subtle ways, either building to a crescendo or petering off and never returning. Other times, and probably the most shocking way, is when the paranormal enters our lives straight out of the blue. Matt has lived in and around Stoke-on-Trent all his life and is now settled in Brown Edge with his husband and 2 cats. Now 33, he has always been a non-believer in the paranormal. I wouldn't even say I was a skeptic because I didn't even give the idea of ghosts any level of conversation, he says. They weren't real, and that was that. Last December, Matt had recently married his partner after the couple met a few years ago in a Hanley nightclub. Their home is small but modern, semi-detached property, which has been lovingly decorated and worked on to create a chic and fresh place for both of them to relax and enjoy their lives with their 2 cats. Matt's partner works nights, and so the usual routine is that while on shift, they would eat tea together and say their goodbyes until the morning, where Matt would normally be woken to the smell of coffee and bacon, which his partner would rustle up and eat with him before he himself went off to work. Matt would then make tea for the 2 of them when he got home. This particular day, Matt had finished work and was on his way home. The bus was almost empty, and when the bus door opened to allow the few people on or off, he could feel the ice-cold air fill the bus. Eventually, his stop came, and Matt got off the bus, looking forward to a warm meal and to seeing his partner. Closing the door behind him and shutting the cold weather out, he felt the warmth of the central heating. Making his way into the kitchen, he hung his coat onto the back of the door and then started to make soup and bread rolls for tea. Matt lit the gas on the oven and placed the soup into a saucepan and then rolls into the oven. Soon the soup and rolls were ready to eat, and Matt placed the food onto 2 separate trays, and lifting the first one began to walk out of the kitchen and towards the hallway, towards the bottom of the stairs. But as he turned to go up the stairs, he saw something so bizarre, so terrifying, it caused him to drop the tray, spilling its contents all over the carpeted floor. There, halfway up the stairs, was a man crouching down with his head looking toward the ground. He was motionless and was wearing dark trousers and top, but nothing on his feet. I remember thinking that he must have broken into the house and I'd caught him leaving, like I had disturbed him, says Matt. I was shaking as the adrenaline rushed through my body. Then, thoughts returned to his partner, who was upstairs in bed, unaware of the imminent danger lurking on the stairs. Shouting out loud to alert him, Matt gave out a blood-curdling scream to try to get his partner to come to the stairs and help with the ominous visitor. But as he did, the man disappeared. It was like he dissolved into darkness. But I know what I saw, and I definitely saw him. Since then, Matt and his partner have changed their view of the paranormal, and now they most certainly do believe Tim.
You okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why do you ask?
Oh, it just sounds like it might be a little hoarse. That's all.
Do I not sound like I'm okay, Tim?
No, I mean,
What are you trying to say to me, Tim? What are you getting at, Tim?
it's just, it might be a little
Hey,
hoarse.
Dave. That's how this letter starts out.
Oh, good for you.
Not a dig, but it's there.
Yeah.
I can't begin to tell you how many times I've sat down and written or partially written this all down and then erased it. So let's try this again. My disclaimer is that if it sounds crazy to you, just know that I have felt crazier than that every day since it happened, that I think about it. The other problem with getting it all down has been my brain's unwillingness or inability to process its response to start me yawning uncontrollably and hit me with overwhelming fatigue so that I just want to lay down and sleep. That being said, let's get it on. This starts in my post-divorce life. During my divorce in 2001, a friend of mine, knowing that I was the newly single mom and needing to get my feet under me, offered to let me store some of my belongings in an empty house that had belonged to her grandparents, by then deceased, on her family's property out near Schulenburg, Texas, in order to save me from having to pay for storage. Over the years, I went out there several times, always by myself, as I sold off unused things I had stored and retrieved them to deliver to their new owners. Never a problem, never an uneasy feeling. Now a little background on me. I don't know what to describe myself as. I do know that I have never had to go looking for the paranormal, as it always finds me often enough. I do know it came from my maternal grandmother, and that I discovered this fact when my grandmother and I had shared an experience shortly after the death of my grandfather when I was 9 years old. I heard him call her name from the bedroom in the back of the house, saying, "Come here, I need you." She and I both started to get up to go check on him and almost got to the hallway before recalling we had laid him to rest 2 days before. I can tell you that I mostly pick up feelings and emotions. Less often I hear and see spirits or echoes of things. However, up until the encounter, that is the subject of this email, all of my experiences had been at least benign, if not positive. So I never found any reason to fear this extra ability that I apparently have. Moving on, it was 2014. I moved to North Texas in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. 2 years later, I decided to retrieve the few boxes I had still stored down in the Schulenburg home. My friend's family was in the process of trying to sell the property anyway, and I was back on my feet and had room to store the remaining boxes. So one bright day, after spending the previous night with a friend in Houston, I headed out to the Schulenburgs to retrieve my stored box and head back home to Athens, Texas. I arrived at the property around 10 a.m., backed up to the front steps, and proceeded inside to begin loading my boxes. I had loaded around 10 or 11 boxes into the bed of my truck and went back in to get another. As I entered the living room where the boxes were, it felt like the atmosphere had changed. It felt a bit darker and was just heavier, uneasy feeling. I just chalked it up to being tired, as my friend and I had stayed up the previous night, catching up and visiting. I walked across the living room, picked up a box, turned, began walking back toward the room, and got just over the hallway across when it was like I walked into a wall of absolute dread. I don't know how else to explain this. I just froze. The feeling was so overwhelming, it kind of took my breath away and stopped me in my tracks. I had almost pulled myself together to get moving again when something slammed the box I was carrying straight to the floor, as though someone had slammed their hands down right on top of it, with both hands, ripping it from my hands. It was enough force, and I was so startled that it threw me off balance, and I went staggering back a few steps. I can recall thinking, my brain screaming at me really, that if I lost my feet, I was dead. If I lost my footing, I was dead. I had just gotten my balance and my feet back under me when it felt as though something slammed into my left thigh and above the knee. I didn't even really have time to process this when I was picked up and thrown into the wall behind me. Not pushed, not shoved, not backed. Nothing to trip on, and tripping wouldn't even begin to explain my going completely airborne. I vaguely remembered hitting the wall, mostly with the right side of my back. I hit it hard enough to break the sheetrock, as I ended up picking bits of it out of my hair and all of my clothes later. I then crashed to the floor, losing my footing. I hit the wall hard enough to knock the breath out of me, because I can recall sitting there on the floor, up against the wall, my brain screaming at me to run, and being completely unable to even move. As I sat there, unable to move, I felt the most indescribably awful feeling start coming down over me. The only way I can describe it is if someone had opened up the top of my head and poured cold oil made of pure despair, dread, hopelessness, and every other negative feeling straight into my brain, and it was slowly running, like dripping paint, down into the rest of my body. I could almost physically feel it make its way down from my head to my neck, my chest. It was paralyzing and suffocating. I struggled, trying to get up, move, run, anything, but felt myself pinned by what felt like the end of a burning stick on my abdomen. At this point, I was very literally convinced that I was going to die. Right then, right there, that moment, that day. The one and only thing I could think to do at that point was to call to St. Michael. I'm surprised that even occurred to me, as I'm not a particularly Christian person. I don't even know how the thought of that came to me, but I did. I can't recall exactly what I said, except that I was begging for help. I don't know what happened, other than I guess at around 20 to 30 seconds later, I felt what I describe as a huge release. The awful oozing feeling of darkness left me. I am no longer pinned down and paralyzed. I managed to get my feet and run out of there. I jumped into my truck and tore out of there. I had 4 boxes left in the bed of my truck when I finally stopped many miles later, as I had not closed my tailgate and had, in an uncharacteristic act of recklessness born of blind terror, slung most of them out driving like a maniac. I never went back to look for them or to retrieve the boxes that I had left behind in that house. The final tally of my injuries, multiple large areas of bruising. My entire left thigh was black and blue with bruising all the way around. The entire right side of my back was one big bruise, not as dark as my thigh, but a definite purple hue. Lighter bruising on my right hip, upper ankle, and shoulder. My right forearm and pinky side of my right hand were both bruised dark purple. My right pinky finger broken. There was skin ripped off the upper palm and fingers of my right hand. I assumed that the box being slammed out of my hands caused that. A large gash in my left thigh, just above the knee, approximately 4.5 to 5 inches long and around a half an inch wide. I still have the scar this day. A light scar on my abdomen, approximately the size of my thumb, was where I burned the day from where I was burned that day from whatever was pinning me down. It blistered, popped, scabbed over, and eventually healed. A mild concussion and a big knot on the back, right side of my head. Several cracked ribs, I suspect, given how much it hurt to breathe and sleep for the next several weeks. Several fractured vertebrae. Yikes, what an attack.
Boy, I'll say.
12 years, and you are the first one I've told. I told everyone else I'd fallen off a horse, wore long pants and long sleeves to cover what I could. I never even sought medical treatment until months later when my back was still hurting me. Seriously, what would I have told them? Probably nothing that wouldn't have them locking me up in a psych ward or calling the police and social services. I've enclosed a diagram of the injuries. It's one thing to describe it, quite another to actually see a visual representation of the fuller horror of it all. I've also enclosed a diagram of the living room, fireplace in the right corner, French doors on the right. So I've spent 12 years not only terrified that something similar could happen again, but also very angry at myself for a myriad of reasons. First off, being so naive. For 36 years, this thing I have had never resulted in anything but benign or even positive encounters until that one day in 2006. I was so naive to not realize that the same thing that allows me to have those harmless encounters could make me vulnerable to the kind of encounter that day. I should have known. I should have been more aware, and I should not have been so dismissive of that feeling that things had suddenly changed. Second, for feeling so ungrateful that this thing I have, I can't even myself call it a gift, yet I hear people call it that all the time, talking about such and such psychic's gift. And here I sit with this attitude that I'd give it away in a hot second if I could. Then I end up feeling guilty because I see all these people running around and helping others with theirs. I end up thinking that I'm just an ungrateful brat for not seeing it as a gift and using it to help others, but for not learning to control it and make it good of it. Maybe that is what I'm supposed to do, and I'm just wasting it. Now too terrified to even try to do such a thing. Does that make sense? I was watching my friend's teen daughter 2 days ago and let her use my laptop to watch Netflix. I was in the other room reading while she was watching episodes of Ghost Adventures. Now, I know who Zach is, and I have had a lot of respect for what he does. I've seen some interviews he's given, but I cannot watch Ghost Adventures. I think you understand why, I hope. However, I happened to hear a line, something Zach said, and I ran in the other room and made her back it up to that line. I didn't even know what episode it was. Zach was talking with a woman, and she said something about his gift, and I'll never forget him in his reply. It's not necessarily a gift. I don't know exactly how he meant it, but I might feel the same way. Whether he meant it as in that same way or not, I'm not going to tell you it magically cured my guilt over feeling that way about it, but it definitely made me feel less alone in my thinking. It was such a relief. It literally made me cry, and that's not something I easily admit to. If or when you see him, tell him that I said, thanks for that strength. Now that I've taken so much of your time, and bless you if you made it this far, let's see if I can actually manage to send it this time rather than erasing it. Thanks again for reading and listening and letting me unburden myself. It's been quite cathartic. Best wishes, and that comes from D. Marie. What a story. Yeah. Holy cow. All that bruising and abuse?
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, All right, a couple more quick stories, Timmy, and we will have to call it a night if you don't mind so much.
All right.
Let's see here. We've got a couple of good ones popping up I want to make sure I can get to, if they will open up for us. You know, it's been a while since we've been with iHeartRadio, Tim, and you'd think by now my equipment would be better. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's not.
Well,
this one comes from our own backyard, Tim.
Oh, yeah?
Park Rapids, Minnesota.
Ah.
Are you ready?
Ready.
Hey, Dave and Tim, greetings from up north here in Minnesota. My wife and I have been listening to the podcast for about a year. We greatly enjoy it, and I've been going through the archives and listened to a show from, I believe, around 2016 when you had read and talked about some police paranormal stories and asked anyone to share stories where their police were called for a supernatural event. So I figured I would share 2 that I know about. I was born and raised just south of the Twin Cities metro area near Northfield, Minnesota, and Cannon Falls, Minnesota. I had a friend whose stepdad was a deputy sheriff. One day after school, I was going to stay overnight at his house, and his dad had picked us up in his patrol car to bring us to his house. As we were driving to their house, a call came over the radio that someone had seen a person at the old sanatorium and that another deputy needed backup if someone was in the area. Since we were close, he said he could respond, but that we were in the car, so he would have to make it quick. A quick walkthrough with the other deputy. For background, the Mineral Springs Sanatorium was built in the early 1900s as a TB clinic. It also had the distinction of being near the Mayo Clinic and was the place where an experimental cure was tested that eventually would lead to a cure for TB. So, history lesson over, back to the story. By this time in the late 1980s, it was abandoned and in disrepair, but homeless people and kids would sneak in there and sleep there to vandalize it. When we pulled in, the other deputy was already there and had walked around the outside and was waiting to go inside. My friend and I had been laughing about being locked in the back of the police car until we pulled up to the building. I still remember how foreboding and scary the place looked. While his dad and the other deputy were getting the key out of a lockbox that they had there, we just sat there staring at the building. The 2 of them retrieved the key and went inside. It was weird. I couldn't speak in anything but other than a whisper, and neither could my friend. Suddenly, we were both turned our heads at the same time because we saw movement near the side of one of the buildings. A man walked out of the shadows and started crossing the lawn area. We looked at each other and at the same time said what we should do. We couldn't get out of the car. We were both locked in the back of the car, and honestly, I was glad. He said I should try to yell for my dad. I responded, "Do you think he'll hear us?" All the while, we were just staring at this guy as he strolls across the lawn. As he was approaching a bush, he turned his head towards us, and I swear there was just a blank space. No eyes, no mouth, nothing. He continued walking behind the bush, but never came out the other side. Now, this bush was only about 4 feet tall and not that thick. You could see light through it. We didn't know what to think. Did he see us and run, or was he hiding back there? If he would have run away from us, we would have seen him because it was only about 50 yards to the trees behind it. When my friend's dad came out, we yelled at him and told him what we had seen, that someone was hiding behind that bush. He and the other deputy ran over to the bush and looked around it and continued to look around near it, walk behind it and search the grounds. They finally came walking back and opened the door and said, "Ha ha, very funny. There's nothing there." Now, I have no idea what we saw, but we both saw something. This wasn't made up. A couple years later, we were neighbors. We were at a neighbor's house, and the subject of the sanatorium came up. My parents talked about how it was rumored to be haunted back in the early 60s when they were in high school. Then, when the neighbor told us about how he had been hired to watch the boilers and do security after it had been abandoned, and they didn't know if it was still in use or not. Those stories are his to tell, but needless to say, he had no doubt that the place was haunted. Most of the buildings were torn down in 1991, and now a housing development is there. I don't think I'll be buying one of those houses. My second story happened in the late 1990s. My wife and I were living together, but not yet married. We were living near Pine River, Minnesota, on a rented farm with my sister and her 3 children. I was an assistant manager for a 24-hour convenience store and would work 9-hour shifts 5 days a week, normally from 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. When we first moved in, we had noticed weird electrical issues and heard strange noises, but just chalked them up to it being in an old house. This was an older farmhouse that had been somewhat updated. There was a master bedroom on the main floor and the kitchen, dining room, living room, and the bathroom. Upstairs were 3 bedrooms with a landing area at the top of the stairs between them. One of the upstairs had been outfitted with a small balcony that overlooked the barn and garage and outbuildings. One night in early September, it was storming. I know it sounds like a bad horror story. I was at work and my future wife and sister were home with the kids. Around 8 p.m., my wife calls and says, "There's a man trying to get in the house." I, of course, told her to call the sheriff's department and grab the shotgun out of the bedroom. She told me and my sister had already called them and that she was calling me from our other line. As soon as I hung up, I told the other 2 people that I had to go home quickly and check on my family, and they told me to go. Now, this is a rural county, and before police cars were equipped with GPS, and apparently the deputy had a hard time finding our house. So it ended up I got there, and then the deputy pulled in right behind me. I will digress here to explain that our store was the only one open 24 hours in southern Cass County, so the sheriff's department had an account with us to fill their vehicles. Because of this, I got to know all of the deputies and patrolled in our area. When we got out of our vehicles, the deputy said, "Oh, hi, Matt. Is this your place?" I said, "Yep," and explained who was inside. Together, we walked around the outside getting soaked the whole time. When we walked up to the patio door and asked my future wife what had happened, my wife told us the guy was trying to get in the back door, which leads into the kitchen. Now I better explain this entryway and door. There was an outer door that led into a mudroom that was about 6 by 8 feet. When you walked in on the right side was the outside. When you walked in on the right side was the outside wall that had space to put shoes and hangers for jackets. In front of the door that went down to the basement, and to the left of the door that went to the kitchen, the door and the door going outside had windows in them. The deputy and I walked around to the door and looked inside. There was no one there. As he opened the door and looked in, we both looked for the same thing but didn't say anything. We both looked for the same thing but didn't say anything to each other. But I'll get back to that. My wife opened the door to the kitchen and told us she had put the dogs in the basement earlier because she felt bad about them being out in the rain. This surprised me because normally if they were in the basement and heard someone, they would be barking at the door going down to the basement. The deputy said I should check the basement in case they went down there. Good deputy. Yeah, why don't you go down and check on that? Isn't that your job, Deputy Droop Along? I told him I would open the door in case the dogs went nuts. I slowly opened the door, expecting the dogs to try to get out, and nothing. They weren't there. I turn on the light, step in, still no dogs. The deputy says, well, I better go first, and starts down the stairs with me following. Now, to describe the basement for those who have never been in an old farm basement, it was only about 6 feet to the bottom of the floor joists, and the walls were made of field stone and cement. It was an open space except a room partitioned off that was used as a root cellar. Now, when we got to the bottom and looked around, I finally saw the dogs, and they were confused. They were sitting in the corner, cowering. Now, these were outdoor dogs that would chase off coyotes and other animals. Besides that, one was a German Shepherd Pit Bull mix. The other was an Australian Shepherd and Collie mix. They weren't small dogs. When they saw me, they whined and came over to me with a very sheepish stance. As I was petting them, and the deputy checked out the cellar part and said nothing was in there. When we turned around to head back upstairs, we both stopped and looked at each other. I asked him if he saw what I saw. He said, I think so. But I think so, but do notice our footprints. I don't know what that is. There, plain as day, was our wet footprints. That's what we had both looked for upstairs in the entryway and hadn't seen any footprints up there either. Now, everyone is yelling, that's great, but what did you both see? Well, I don't know what we saw because we didn't talk about it. But I saw a black kind of transparent shadow. That's the best way I can describe it. Move and go up the stairs. Now, The way this sounds is that it took forever, but in truth, it was probably about 10 or 15 minutes. After we walked back to the stairs, he went outside, and I told my fiance and sister that there was nothing downstairs and the house was fine. I then went outside to talk to the deputy. At the time, a second deputy came into the driveway and was talking to the first deputy. The second deputy, I'll call him Steve, not his real name, and said, "You live here, Matt?" Again, I said, "Yes." He said, "Huh," and then asked what happened. We told him, and again he said, "Huh, interesting." That was when he asked if we had checked the other outbuildings. We told him no, since the three of us proceeded to check out the garage, shop, barn, and granary. We found nothing. So the first deputy said, well, probably just had, just the storm causing jumpy nerves. Steve said, yeah, probably, but something about his tone made me think he didn't believe it. Later that night, my fiance retold me everything that happened. She said she walked into the kitchen and didn't see anyone at the door. She got a glass and filled it with water. As she was filling it, she turned and looked at the door and saw a man standing there. She dropped the glass in the sink and ran to the dining room. She was very visibly shaken from the memory. Then she said the weird part was that it was like he was glowing or lit up, and that it wasn't like he was lit up from outside, but from within. Fast forward about 2 months. At this point, my sister had moved into her own place because her children were having trouble sleeping at night, and she said she couldn't stay upstairs anymore. She told us that she was sure someone was watching her at night. I didn't really blame her, as I thought her and my fiance were fighting, but they didn't want to upset me. So this particular night, my fiance was staying at her friend's house, and I had to work my normal shift until 10 p.m. When I got home at about 10:30, I did my normal routine. I checked the dog's food. At this point, we only had the Shepherd Pit Bull mix, as we had to put down the other dog. I made some food and sat down in the living room to watch some TV. The dog was inside, laying at the doorway between the living room and the kitchen. I just started eating when suddenly the TV turned off. Sighing, I put the plate on the coffee table, got up and turned the TV back on. I sat down and started eating again, and less than 5 minutes later, click, the TV turned off again. I set my plate down, got back up, turned it back on, and as I'm walking back to the chair, I happened to look over at the dog. She's staring at the ceiling and doing that low back of the throat growl. That's when I hear it. Thump, thump, thump. Footsteps going back and forth upstairs. I'm thinking someone broke into the house, and while I was at work, I go into our bedroom and grab my pistol and mag light and head upstairs. Now, since nobody was staying up there, we had shut that door leading to the stairs to conserve heat. So I'm pissed. I throw open the door and shine a light up the stairs and yell, "Come out and show yourself." Nothing. I reach over and turn on the light. "Hey, dipschmidt." That's what he says here, Tim. Dipschmidt. I'm armed and I'm coming up there, slowly working my way up the stairs. I get to the top, flashing the light into each room. Nothing. There was no one obvious in any of these rooms. So starting with the first room, I turned on the light and checked under the bed and the closet, everywhere. Nothing. Next room, same thing. The last room was the room with the balcony. Nothing in there. But I noticed that the door to the balcony wasn't locked. I was sure that we had locked it before. I thought, now I have you. I flashed the light outside but didn't see anything. So I slowly opened the door and nothing. I checked the roof, flashed the light around on the ground, and nothing. Well, I thought, I must be tired and hearing things. So I closed the door, lock it, and put a folding chair under the door handle. I turn off the bedroom light and go back down the stairs, leaving the light on above the stairs. So I sit back and start eating again. Thump, thump, thump. The dog jumps up and starts growling. Okay, I know I checked everything upstairs. More hesitantly, I walk over to the door, opening it again, armed with a flashlight. Nothing, but this time I hear the footsteps, and they cross the landing to the top of the stairs, but no one walks across, or at least no one visible. I step back and close the door. Okay, well, it's up there. I'm down here. Everything is fine. So I go back to sit down in the chair facing the door watching TV. Out of the corner of my eye, pretty soon, I hear the pacing back and forth again. Then it stops at the top of the stairs. I was just staring at the ceiling now when thump, 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 the footsteps started coming down the stairs. Nope. F this, I'm out. I jump up and head out the door, dog right behind me. We get in my truck and head to town. I go back to my work and hang out there for about an hour. The overnight guy asked me what was wrong and what was going on. I told him, "Oh, I just couldn't sleep." He seems to believe it. After about an hour, I head back home. Using the flashlight and turning on every light downstairs, I fall asleep in the chair at about 4 a.m. About 10 a.m., my fiance comes home and asks me why I'm asleep in the chair. I must have fallen asleep watching TV, was my reply. I never told her about the real reason until after we had moved out. We would hear the footsteps on and off from time to time, or I would pull in one of the upstairs lights and it would be on, and my fiance would say she hadn't been upstairs. Fast forward another 5 months, we have moved out and bought a place of our own. Now, working the hours that I did, if the overnight guy didn't come in or didn't show up, I would have to cover his shift and work until 5 a.m. when the manager would come in. Well, this was one of those nights. And now I said before the cops would come in and fill up the vehicles, that seems like a weird jump. Well, this was one of those nights. Now, as I said before, the cops would come in and fill up their vehicles. Most of the time, they weren't busy. They would hang out and drink coffee and BS. I wouldn't mind because first having the cops there, I wasn't worried about anyone messing around, and also it helped keep me awake. Well, on this night, the local cop and 2 sheriff's deputies were hanging out. One of them was Steve from the other part of the story. The conversation turned to the strange things, and I had told them the story about the footsteps. At this point, Steve brought up the night that they had come out to the house. I told him my fiance had told me she thought the guy was glowing. He kind of laughed and said that it didn't surprise him. That place was haunted, or that it was probably just a ghost. You know what happened there, don't you? That's when he told me about the guy who had owned the property about 10 years before we moved in. He said he was a new deputy, and a call had come in that someone was cutting fences in the area of the house and that they thought it was him. He got the call to go back, ask about it, but when he got there, no one answered the door. He looked around, but no one was there, so he left. He figured he would come back and looked at the fences. As he was driving away, he got a call that someone had heard shots fired in Bacchus, a town just north of there. He said he and several other officers responded and found 2 dead bodies at a house. The husband and wife were friends of the man he was looking for. Apparently, someone had seen his truck there earlier, so he and another deputy went back to the house we were living in to take him into custody until they could figure out what his involvement was. As they pulled into the driveway, he told me the first thing he saw was a pair of boots sticking out of the door of the mudroom where my fiance had seen the man. When they walked up, they saw that he had a shotgun in his mouth and pulled the trigger. Eventually, they found out that apparently the night before, several guys had been playing poker at the couple's house. The bunch of them were drinking, and the man who owned the house where we had lived had lost quite a bit of money and accused the man of whose house they were at cheating. One of the other guys said he threatened the man that he was going to kill him and stumbled out and left. They thought he was just blowing off steam and that he would calm down the next day. Steve figured it was while he was going home drunk that he had cut the fences. Well, in the morning, he hadn't calmed down, so he drove into town with a shotgun and knocked on the door of the couple's house. When the wife answered the door, he shot her point blank, walked in and shot the husband twice, and then left. After he drove home, they figure what he did hit him, and he killed himself. Steve said, I felt bad that I hadn't gotten there sooner, but that he was also relieved because he may have been shot too. Suddenly, everything we experienced seemed to make sense. And when I told my fiance, she felt relieved that she wasn't crazy. Well, there's a couple of stories involving law enforcement. Sorry if it went on too long, but if you decide to read this, hopefully your listeners will enjoy it. I do have a story involving Bigfoot, but that will have to wait for another time. Thank you all for what you guys do, and our prayers are with you. Sincerely, Matt and Rhonda of Park Rapids, Minnesota. Thank you guys for sharing that story. A couple of really cool stories to wrap up the show. For Tim Dennis, I'm Dave Schrader. Thank you for listening to the best in paranormal talk radio. We'll be back again tomorrow as we explore Haunted Tombstone and a brand new theater of the mind here on Beyond the Darkness.